ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move to the next speaker for the conference. Dr. Aritra Chakrabarty is an energy policy scholar whose work focuses on just and equitable energy transitions in the global south. His research sits at the intersection of gender, social justice, and sustainability, with a strong emphasis on community level energy policy and inclusive development. He applies interdisciplinary approaches across environmental policy, energy justice, and technology governance, with a particular focus on gender and energy transitions. Dr. Chakrabarty is a PhD in Environment and Energy Policy at the Michigan Technological University, from which he graduated in 2025. Prior to his academia, he spent 8 years as a renewable energy consultant in South Asia, bringing practical industry insights into his research. He also holds a master's degree in economics from the Symbiosis International University. Unfortunately, Dr. Chakrabarty couldn't be here today, but we have a recorded version of his presentation. Please allow me a second while I share that.
Hey everyone, thank you all for being here. I would like to thank the Energies team for giving me this opportunity to talk about the topic of community-led energy transitions. And within that, my specific topic is obviously based on my experience on working with solar energy and energy justice-based frameworks, is the aspect of social equity. And if social equity or equity in general can be part of the energy transition phenomena. Now I want to recognize this presentation with something very important, and which I'm sure everyone else also might in this group might be aware, that across the global south, we are witnessing a rapid expansion of renewable energy in the form of both grid and off-grid. And here I'm talking only of solar, just bear that in mind. Solar energy in the form of solar home lighting systems, off-grid systems, and other forms of microgrids and mini grids and other forms of off-grid systems have been expanding through community-led programs in rural villages, in places where grid infrastructure has not reached yet. Now, there is a sense of momentum behind this. There is a sense of push towards energy decentralization that's carrying this momentum forward. And however, this progress seems to assume that the transition is, obviously it's clean, but it assumes that the transition is fair and it's going to give access equally to everyone in the global south. And this is where I want all of us to pause on this very assumption, which goes unnoticed by our scholarship. Now, obviously, solar energy has made tremendous stride so far, and given the war climate in which we have been for a long time, I and others of my ilk will definitely recognize that solar energy and its expansion is the way to go. But I want to also specify that across the world, there are still 600 to 700 million people that still lack access to clean electricity. And so far, as of 2024, 30% of new connections have come from mini-grid form of community energy systems, and 25% from standalone solar systems. And in Europe alone, let's say if we talk about the global north alone, in Europe, the combined economic juggernaut behind this push towards renewable energy has been purported to benefit the European economy to 1 trillion. And on the other hand, the community energy systems and systems that are locally implemented with local partners benefit the local economy more than 2 times as opposed to a system that is developed by our external provider. Now, moving on. I want you guys, so by the way, this is the scene of a community energy system in Bangladesh, in rural Bangladesh, where using the microloan system from Grameen Bank, a local town purchased the first solar panel, then obviously a solar grid around the system. Now, as I said earlier, from the start itself, that across the global south, we are witnessing a rapid expansion of renewable energy. And my work on community systems in rural parts of global south, including extensively in India, has shown that these systems are invariably embedded in the economic and social inequalities of that particular geography, which include gender, ethnic identities, minority identities, and as well as nowadays political identities. Now, if you see in this picture, the most obvious aspect is the structure of the built structure of that region, is the remoteness of that region. You can also get a sense of the economic condition of that people. Now, all these existing identities, and when they overlap with each other, and when you put a technology system within that geography, it is invariably going to produce an access situation or a use scenario that is not equitable. And that is the assumption which has been carried forward in scholarship, which has been carried forward in evidence, by overlooking the gendered impacts, the impacts across user groups. Now, this brings us to the question of what would it take for community energy systems to be genuinely equitable? And this is where the idea of energy democracy becomes important, not just as a theoretical concept of, as we know, which is having the consumer having the power to decide the production, the consumption, and how much energy the consumer decides. All of that theory, yes, we all know. But energy democracy for global south is very critical and practical. Energy democracy asks us to shift our perspective and ask, who has control on the access? Who makes decisions? How is the decision-making power shared? What is the procedure to arrive at decision-making? Because ultimately, at the core of this is agency, the ability to make meaningful choices and the ability to influence outcomes. And in the global south, this is especially urgent because energy transitions here are intersected with the overall agenda of development, how the development is viewed, how livelihoods are created, and in many cases, the sheer act of survival. Energy is just not about lighting homes here. Keep that in mind. Energy is also about providing the skills necessary across genders to find work in this new economy, which is to be led by renewable energy. Energy here is also about supporting basic education for children. It is reshaping the gendered labor and the economic opportunities across gender. So when this entire aspect of equity is misguided or misrepresented or even underrepresented, the consequences, even if they are from a system that is affordable, are dire. These inequalities permeate through the existing ethnic divides, existing gender divides, where still the access and the use from that access remains unequal across gender, creates economic opportunities for one section of the population who has skills as opposed to another section of the population who does not have the skills. And it manifests in many other forms in terms of how agricultural livelihoods are derived from the solar economy, in terms of how rural market is derived from the availability of solar products, and so on and so forth. My simple fieldwork of a case study of solar program in India showed that this is the lived reality of rural geographies who grapple with energy security scenario while transitioning from a fossil-based to a solar energy-based economy. And they are unaware of the global geopolitical conflict that's impacting their daily lives. In fact, they shouldn't need to be, and which is why it is even more important to push for energy democracy as a practical scenario. Now, this is a scene from the site where I did my study of this solar program in rural India. On the left is the image of one of the huts which had implemented the solar home system. Bear in mind, this hut is approximately like 2 hours away, 2 to 3 hours away from a city center. And on the right is a solar lantern which was used by one of the hutmates where still grid access remained unattended. Now, from my fieldwork, I could see that gender equity and the capabilities surrounding energy access remain unequal. Women's role in influencing the ability to effectively use solar energy within households and within a community remains underutilized, and the expectations of how labor is distributed across gender restricts the program's intended outcomes, which only showed and which only confirmed that just technological access to clean energy does not ensure equity, and in this case, it was gender equity. Now, this brings to the last part of my presentation and what I would want to suggest as a way forward from this entire 2 day of workshop, or let's call it seminar, regarding community energy systems. Now, this is particularly important for communities in the global south, for countries in the global south, that the transition to a decentralized community-based renewable energy system is a question of having an access or having the capability to lead a dignified life. For example, in Jamaica, women's photovoltaic system could power her solar enterprise, her rural enterprise. In Nepal, a microgrid could electrify a remote mountain village with a solar power. And in Ecuador, indigenous people in Amazon can use electric motors on boats to navigate the river bodies. All of these very specific, geography-specific implementation of solar programs at a community scale, in whatever technological scale they might be implemented, need to have an equitable pathway as part of the policy design, as part of the program design. Otherwise, these communities who are unaware yet affected by the global energy shocks, the energy security risks, will ultimately fall trap to a global energy market in which they will have no power at all, absolutely, in determining what they consume, what they pay for to be consumed, and how they consume energy for their end users. And that is why I strongly advocate for using the principles of equity in designing and strengthening local governance and shared democracy, and enabling a community participation that is meaningful and that ultimately creates an energy democracy. And with that, I would like to end this presentation. I am Aritra Chakrabarty, currently working as a postdoc research fellow at the University of Exeter. And once again, thank you for the conference organizing team for giving this opportunity to speak regarding this important and pertinent topic. Thank you.
I think we once again heard how important the community focus in these sessions are. And we once again learned that it's important to build resilience for local communities to have renewable energies, because it can strengthen local governments and the people there.